Hey everyone, it's Katie from Moonflower Moments. I just got a new Oracle deck in that I have been waiting for probably about 2 years to pull the trigger on. And this Oracle deck has essentially rocked my world and made me really reflect on what I enjoy about Oracle and what I hate about it. Because I think I've been pretty public on here about the fact that I don't use Oracle decks. And that's pretty true. I don't really grab them very often, but I think it's because I'm trying to figure out what kinds I enjoy. So with that being said, I have pretty much all my oracles laid out. I have about 75 decks in my collection, and 14 of them are 14 or 15 of them are oracle decks. So I thought we would take a look at the oracle decks that I have to determine what works and what doesn't work, because like I said, I know the deck that I got in yesterday very much is going to work for me, but it's not the only way that Oracle could work for me or that it is working for me. You know, there are some things about my Oracle practice that are working, and there's some things that aren't. So I think I need to look at the tools that I have on hand and really just dissect what works, what doesn't work, and where I'm going to go from here, because I do want to utilize every deck that's in my collection. That's part of the reason for these dissecting my tarot practice videos. You know, if something's not working, I want to try to figure it out. I feel like that's part of the fun. So after that long intro, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So in terms of the deck that I just got, I just purchased the Faceted Garden. I sat on this, like I said, for over 2 years. And the real reason that I sat on it is because I told myself, oh, I don't use Oracle decks. So like, why would I spend $50 on an indie deck that I'm not going to use? And from the very first reading that I did with this, even before I did a reading, when I opened up the box, I realized, hey, hold up. Maybe I do want to use Oracle. I've just been using the wrong types. So the reason I think that this deck is going to work for me is because I'm a massive gardener. And so when I hear words such as the sun, you know, I don't think of it just as like a light perspective or even what the sun card represents in tarot. I think about what the sun represents to my plants. And so I see these cards from a metaphoric perspective. And so these words are really expansive to me because they allow me to pull on the metaphors of the garden into my own reading. Such as, for example, scarecrow. I know a lot of people might have trouble with this card because it's a title instead of a particular keyword, but there's a lot of expansion within that scarecrow, right? Your mind can wander to so many different places. You can think of the scarecrow from Wizard of Oz. You can think about the purpose of a scarecrow to scare away birds. You know, should we scare away birds from our garden when birds are part of the meal, you know, but we are trying to like harvest plants? You know, I don't know. There's a lot that can be said about the scarecrow that just makes me ask questions. And so same with lotus. You could take this from like a religious perspective, or you can take it from the fact that lotus flowers actually purify the soil and the ground. So I feel like this gives me the space that I need to pair it with tarot, because I do tend to read tarot in a very intuitive way. I have a lot of intuitive readers. And so sometimes not everything is going to be rote. I don't want to be told, okay, pollinator means, let's see what we have. Work ethic, right? Or hardworking, or maybe even success, because pollinators can be very successful as they're going about their travels. Those words don't really do anything for me, but the concept of pollinator itself is an archetype that I can work with on so many different levels from all different approaches. So I feel like these words hold space, like summer, for me in ways that some of the other Oracle decks haven't. So I hope that that makes sense. There's another deck that kind of comes close to this one in the sense of the expansiveness and the vastness of the garden, and that would be my Secret Garden Oracle. These are little inspiration cards that I picked up just kind of like on a whim because I had some Amazon reward points. This was like 13 bucks, and I'm like, here we go. Some of these words work for me, right? Like we have the word patience, wait for the fruit to ripen. Okay, I mean, I don't really like that it says patience though, because then it's like telling me have patience. It's a little bit too forceful. Same with rest, same with beauty. but twilight. Okay, I barely even read this little message. I sink into what twilight means for me. And so I feel like some of these words allow for a more personal connection. Wallflower, you know, that's more of a title than a keyword that allows for more personal reflection. So there's some in here that really hit more of that archetypal energy, like weed. You know, what does weed mean to you exactly? Because to me, a weed is just a plant that's showing up where you don't want it to be. That's exactly what a weed is. But then you can think about the noxious weeds that are invasive and are taking over your whole yard and outcompeting non-native plants. This gives me so much more to work on than just the word retreat. You know, this is telling me what to do, whereas this is opening up a portal for me to sink into the reading. So I think that this one's like the little sister of the Faceted Garden Oracle, but I like them both. So we're not going too far in order today, but I think I'll pull in some of the rest of the garden name ones too, or the nature ones, to talk about if they work or not. So one that I wanted to pull in, which sits in my nature basket, is going to be my Southern Gothic. This was one of my first oracle decks that I ever bought. And for some things, it really works, such as the horseshoe. I don't have much of an association with the horseshoe, so keywords like luck and chance help me out a lot. Pinecone, though, I have my own personal interpretation of. I view pine trees as like boundary markers. And so when I work with a pine tree, I oftentimes think about the boundary marker between one realm and another. And so I guess I could bring in third eye and new perspective, but sometimes these keywords get in the way of me forming my own intuitive practices and interacting with the world from a personal intuitive lens. Vanity set, self-awareness and clarity. That totally makes sense for vanity. But when I think of vanity set, I usually think of my grandmothers. So, you know, if I pull this card, I always have that sense of my granny is with me at the reading, and sometimes it's hard for me to ignore the keywords with it. So it's okay. I mean, I very much cherish having this deck in my collection because it's always nice to have a piece of home with me, especially when we're dealing with like the Crystal Grotto. Like, I don't have that anywhere near me. But I almost wonder if I stopped using this deck because as I became a more intuitive tarot reader, as I got more experience, I just found that the kind of that natural progression of I'm ready to take on my own role in this. I'm ready to kind of be my own guide through it, and I don't really want this input. I know that sounds like cocky and kind of pretentious, but I think it's an important part of our spiritual journey that we make our own connections with things in the world, because everything has energy and everything has a resonance to it. And so it's important for us to determine what works for us. So Southern Gothic, how will I work with this? I don't know. How will I work with this? Sometimes it really hits and then sometimes it doesn't. I think I need to give myself freedom to use these images as placeholders for more archetypal energy, like the bayou, right? Emotions manifestation. Obviously, this card's going to be more to me than just these two things. I think I need to use these cards almost as an opportunity to path work into this location or to an interaction with these objects to be able to sink into what it's there to tell me. So that's Southern Gothic. On a similar but different vein, we have Southern Botanic. And if you've noticed that I'm wishy-washy about this deck in my videos, it's because I'm wishy-washy about this deck in real life. I just am. Okay, there's some things that I have deep and very intentional associations with, such as, for example, Spanish moss. I mean, this is a great set of keywords for it: self-expression, flow. But when I think about Spanish moss, which is this moss that hangs from trees, oftentimes off of live oaks, sometimes off of cypress trees, I do think about the fact that it's used in like traditional witchcraft in the South. So there's a sense of like eeriness to it, a sense of witchcraft to me. And so I know that when I pull this card, I can look further into sort of the ancestral uses of Spanish moss in my home area. But my mind sees self-expression and flow, and like I just want to stick on that aspect, right? Like I think oracle cards are important because they're telling you, they're giving you some sort of direction on where to take the reading. But sometimes I guess at the point I am in this practice, at the point I am in my tarot practice, you know, I kind of want to have that sense of curiosity for myself. And this is kind of like the teacher that stands in front of you and tells you kind of, hey, this is what you should look at, instead of kind of inspiring you to go with your own flow. And I know that sounds like a really harsh critique. It might just be where I am with my practice overall. So I think one thing that I need to do with this deck is, first off, just ignore the fucking keywords. That's what I need to do, because like honeysuckle, this was the first plant that I ever made tea with. So honeysuckle is just innately, incredibly magical to me. It reminds me of the high priestess. So there is that sense of ethereal beauty to it and shyness, but I don't really see it as shyness. I see it as like potent magic that is sitting within the bottom of the honeysuckle, and you take a bite, and just like the high priestess, you're sinking into that wisdom. So if I could just ignore these keywords, I would probably be okay, you know? So I think that's how I need to use this. Ignore the keywords. I know it sounds simple, but it's what I need to do. Butter beans, my dad always grows these every year, and I have fond memories of shelling it. So in this case, it actually works with the time cycles, because I think of, you know, growing from being a kid to being an older adult. I don't know. I think this one I just need to ignore the keywords for and have my own associations with it. Crepe myrtle to me, life and death. Definitely gives Empress energy. I don't know. I'm okay with that. All right, so carrying on with the nature theme, we have, this is 50 Plants That Heal, and I had a really great time using this as a guide in the month of June. So we have the title of the plant, the scientific name, the active ingredients, a description, the benefits, and the methods of it. But this is not an oracle deck, it's a study deck with a very clear image of the plant on the back. This is a major type of oracle that I'm reaching for right now. Since they don't have any keywords, I feel inspired to search for this plant out in the real world. So like this one, let me see which one this is. It's leek. Oh, I love leeks. Leeks grow really well in Europe, and so they remind me of my grandmother from Germany. And so when I pulled this card, I was sent down kind of an ancestral path of working with her for about a week or so. So I feel like not having the keywords here really just gives me the opportunity to make my own associations. And it's not saying that I think that others' point of view is not valuable, because it is. It's just I'm at the space in my journey right now where I kind of want to trust my own gut, and I want to trust my own instincts and see where I lead myself before relying on others' people's opinion. I think it's kind of the natural aspect of like a people pleaser, that we always look for others to ask them, hey, how do you feel, before trusting our own self. And I'm reaching to a point to where I want to make my own discoveries. And so I think decks like this that are expansive and kind of like don't have any directions, like what are you supposed to do with this deck? Like it's a study deck. How are you supposed to use it? They kind of allow you to kind of fiddle your own way through and try new things. So this was 50 Plants That Heal. And I love this card, the River Oats. I actually don't know what it says on the back. I think it talks about how you can use oat for like skin conditions. Yeah, it has some of that on here. But my husband planted some river oats in our yard, and currently they are blooming like this. They're making seeds. And he is wildly protective over the oats. So it reminds me of his love and his caretaking. You know, so if I pull this, that's what I would want to think about. And like I said, this is caveat of my dissecting my tarot practice is really just about where I am right now. I mean, this could change. And once again, I'm not trying to devalue other people's opinions. And I know that there are people who can work with decks that have keywords and worked with decks that have very specific titles and feel as if that anchor gives them room to grow. I'm not in that place right now. So a deck that's like halfway working for me right now is another one of my plant decks. I have the plant and animal oracles combined. This is the Druid plant and animal oracles. And this one's like halfway working for me. So most of these plants, I'm going to talk about the plant one first, even though they're mixed in. Most of these plants, because they are European plants, I don't have much of an association with them. So I actually really enjoy using the guidebook for this, especially because they have sections about the traditional usage of the plants. And so I feel like this is kind of a guidebook that a deck that I kind of need more guidance for. So this is expansive in the sense of it's opening me up to an entirely new perspective that I don't have any experience with. So in that sense, it's sort of valuable in that way. I don't find the guidebook to be intrusive at all. Sometimes I feel like when I'm reading with a guidebook, it can be intrusive because it kind of like interrupts the flow of the reading. It interrupts like the flow of my intuition. This one, because it's a whole new world, it leads me to a whole new world. So I am working well with this one. I like that. But once again, with the guidebook, both for the plant and for the animal, you have keywords right here, but because they're separate from the write-up, I can pretty much like ignore them. And then it just has like a general description of the plant, the upright meeting. But then here in this like blue section, it actually has the traditional usage of woad. I believe that's what it's called. I'm going to call it woad. That sounds about right to me. If I'm wrong on the pronunciation, let me know. But it talks about them using it to paint themselves when they're warriors. And so I get much more out of this chunk right now in my journey because yes, you're kind of telling me the usage. And so therefore I can think about how that relates to me in that way, instead of really limiting keywords such as freedom, bardistry, and warriorhood. Also, another problem that I have with like keyword decks is that sometimes these are just too unrelated for me. Like I can see what warriorhood and freedom have to do with each other, but like bardistry with warriorhood, that's a little bit too much of a stretch for me. And I know that I can use tarot cards to explore the connections between those two. You know, how is bardistry connected to warriorhood? There's a sense of pride in both of them that I could explore, but I'm not really interested in exploring other people's personal connections. I would rather discern from my own. So hopefully that doesn't sound too people-centered. Now, I do have a deck that is really working for me, and I'm going to hold this one up so hopefully you can see it, that has keywords, and this is the Runeic Odyssey. I know nothing about runes, and so I find that because we have these images in the back, I'm able to pull on those in my readings. But it's almost like, since I know nothing about the runes, I can't get in my own way of like trying to make my own personal association. So this is a deck where I kind of have to trust other people's interpretations since I have like no knowledge of it at all. And so I think that like a key takeaway from this is maybe with plant decks, I'm at the point where I want to form my own associations, you know, unless they're from a different continent, then that's totally fine. But for like other subjects, I'm still okay with like trusting the interpretations of others. And that's okay, right? Like I can be my own guide through the energies of certain subjects and rely on the expertise of others when it's appropriate to do so, when it's more important for me to do so. So it seems like it contradicts, but I think that's how I'm going to make sense of it, is that for stuff that I know nothing about, okay, give me keywords, right? But there is something beautiful about runes because, you know, from the very little that I know about runes, these two keywords don't really fit the whole essence of what a rune can mean. Runes are more expansive, they're more abstract than tarot and some of the other forms of card divination. And so there's still that expansiveness to it that, like, if I wanted to pull out my rune book and study these, I guess I could. And I'm kind of stuck in the middle with this one. This one's going to be my Heavenly Bodies Astrology Oracle. I bought this as a deck to help me study astrology, and I maybe have done maybe about 5 readings with it. I did bring it to school, and it was we had a couple good readings like before school one day, because with school you're working with so many different energies because you're working with so many different children, and I'm always trying to meet them at their level, that sometimes with like house 10 having all of these different words like structure, discipline, life mission, accomplishments, and career, especially teaching like seniors, so many of them are concerned about careers, so many of them are concerned about accomplishments, some of them are concerned about their life missions. And so it kind of helped me to have like a broad group of keywords when I'm interacting with them, just to feel out the energy for the day, and to make sure that I'm not just focusing on the kids that like are worried about their careers, but the kids that need the structure and they need the discipline like right now to help them foster that. So I think I just talked myself into using this more. So yeah, that's a good thing. I will take that for a win. I will definitely bring this back to school and use it for daily reads. Yeah, okay. So maybe I did find a spot in which it's appropriate for me to use it, because, some of the other decks that I discussed, I prefer to make my own associations, to have like the expansiveness and the width to bring in my own interpretations. But when you're working at school, because you're primarily focused on the kids, you're primarily focused on work, I'm doing a job, it does help to have something more concrete to focus on. So, dissecting my oracle practice, I guess I figured out a situation in which I can use decks with keywords like this. All right, so that works for me. So now I'm wondering if I can use this little bad boy for the same reason at school. So this is the Earth Wisdom deck. Shadow Treasures. Wow, if I pulled that at school, it would definitely encourage me to look beyond the surface and to see, maybe interact with some of the quieter kids and see what kind of light that they have within, the ones that are overlooked. Boundaries, that would be an excellent one to have on a school day. Divine light, seeing the divine light in them. Blessed sight. I don't know about this one, but I think that's because I don't understand what the words mean. I might have to get in the guidebook for that one. Go with the flow. All right, guys, I think I just figured it out. So I came into this video thinking that this deck didn't work for me like at all, but maybe the decks that have keywords instead of titles are just meant to be used for more like quick and dirty readings when I need something more concrete to abide by. Because I can see this deck being used as one that is used for like clarifiers to a reading, but I don't like to use clarifiers, because I think when I'm sitting down to do a full tarot reading, I'm like, no, don't shorten it. I want to be amazed by the awe and the nuances and the beauty. I tend to be a very like straight to the point kind of thinker, so I rely on tarot to like open me up and help me navigate my own thought processes, right? But I don't have time to do like full-blown tarot readings all the time. So maybe this needs to be used as a deck that I use for application, right? Not just transformation, what does that mean? But transformation, how can I apply that concept to the everyday? I like that. I'm good with that. So let's switch over to a deck that has not worked for me like once since I bought it. So that is the Queen of the Moon Oracle. I talked about how I obtained this deck in my Nostalgic Meet Yous video, which is still, I think, my favorite video that I've made on YouTube. And because of its origins, I'm never going to get rid of it. But I struggle so much with this deck. So what I have an issue with is, I think because this is nature-based, because it's based in the moon, it has the cycle, the moon cycle here, and then it has a keyword down here. I don't know shit about the moon, right? but I almost feel like I've been using this deck as kind of like a, instead of a way to like learn more about the moon, to kind of give me an anchor to try to explore it, I think I've kind of been using it as like a crutch, right? So like I know that the first quarter moon assessing, okay, that makes sense, because you're assessing where you're going to go next. I mean, I get that. That makes sense. But I don't want the first quarter moon to only mean assessment to me. But I think with this deck, I've just gotten caught up in a cycle and stuck where I'm like, oh, the Oracle of an Expert tells me that this is what it means, so this is what it means. You know, and kind of like the plants, because it's nature, I'm like, I feel like one word just doesn't convey everything that I'm looking for. It's a little too narrow and a little too specific. And that could just be like my own point about it, right? Like this isn't supposed to convey everything. The guidebook author definitely doesn't pretend that it does. It's supposed to give you a way in to work with the moon cycles in a way that's accessible for all. But I think that like I look at this and I'm like, okay, I'm stuck here. What am I supposed to do next? It's almost like I get the reading and then it just kind of falls flat because I don't know what else to do since I'm not doing that research about the moon cycles myself. So could I use this in school? I mean, I was going to say yes, but attractions, it's a little bit weird of a word to have. Fruition, maybe. Purity, maybe. Change, maybe. Protection, I like that image. Maybe? I don't know, there's some concepts that like are a little bit sensual, like pleasure. I think we just saw one. Attraction. I'm thinking about the one that has like the heat. Let me find it. Where's it at? Of course, I probably passed it up way in the beginning. I mean, like, these don't have to be sensual, but their connotations are a little bit, I don't know. We still got to figure out how to use this. Can anyone give me guidance on this? Like, is there another deck that has the moon cycles that you prefer to use that's a little bit more expansive? Because let me get out the guidebook. Okay. So it says, take care in your choices now, look carefully and judge wisely. There may have been something difficult to see, something that has been obscured, but now it has been revealed to you. Examine it closely. We get an affirmation, and then all of this is just kind of general life advice that connects back to the basic advice here. But like, where is the connection to the moon? I think that's where it falls flat for me, because like I need that connection between, I want you to tell me how it relates to the waxing moon. Like I can kind of fill in the blank, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just thinking too hard about this one. I probably spent too long talking about it. But if you have advice on how to work with this, or you know of a deck like this that kind of does a similar job, let me know. I'll even take advice on books. Like, is there a book out there that talks about working with the moon? I don't know. Maybe this isn't meant to be my type of energy, which is why I'm not giving that much time to work with it. But I'm not sure. All right, so we're more than halfway done. I want to talk about a deck that I ruined for myself. And that's why it's important to like dissect our tarot practice, right? Because you don't want to end up making a mistake that I did. So full disclosure, this is a counterfeit deck. I bought it. I had no idea it was counterfeit deck. And that did ruin me working with it for a while. But I decided, okay, if it's counterfeit, I haven't picked it up in like 7 months because I have like this nasty kind of relationship to it. I don't want to throw it away. I don't want to give it away. Like, what do I do with it? I decided that I was going to write keywords on it. And these keywords came from the book. Dumbo me, I should have not copied down the keywords from the book. I should have sat and asked myself what the teacup means to me. Because I pull this, and yes, I can see ease, I can see rest, I can see small mind, but what I'm seeing is a cup. I'm seeing a vessel. So I'm seeing like a holder of space. And so for me, the keywords don't work. I ruined it. Guys, like I took a deck that had these big themes, like bees. Okay, beautiful bees. I think of bees as like a pollinator. So I think of something that gives sustenance, and like a sustenance to us and provides us honey and provides us something sensual. It's almost like a sensual partner in that way. So why did I write work togetherness treasures? Like maybe, but like the words don't encapsulate for me like what a bee means. And so I took away the power of this deck to be archetypal, the power of this deck to ask me what this stuff means. And I wrote some words on it. I don't know. I don't know if I can ever recover from this. You know, I've thought about rebuying this deck, you know, an actual real copy, because God forbid, you know, I don't want to be using a counterfeit deck. Like, it does make me feel icky. But like, I'm like, I don't really use this deck. But am I not using it because it's counterfeit? Am I not using it because it's like I wrote the keywords? Am I not using it because it didn't work for me? I don't know. Have I outgrown it? Is it time to move past it? Because I do see these cards, which are the literary witches, right? Like the actual authors. This is good. There's sort of some kind of like creepy, flowy energy to it. I have the big book that goes along with this deck. Fortunately, I bought that separate and it was not counterfeit. And it gives you like little vignettes that kind of encapsulate this author's energy. So these cards I can work with well, because even though it has a keyword justice, I'm getting from the book these tiny little vignettes and suggested readings that allow me to go on my own journey, right? And the keyword's small enough here too that I can basically just like ignore it. But these cards, I don't know what to do with them anymore. I don't know. I'm racking my brains here trying to figure out how I can use this. Should I separate the deck from these images and only work with the literary witches? Because I feel like, I don't know how many cards are in the deck, but I feel like there's only like 20 of these. Is that enough to make like a little mini oracle about it? Should I, instead of using it as like a mini oracle, should I take these out and use them as like altar cards? Because, you know, I am an English teacher, so I enjoy reading literature, and one of the things that I've stepped away from as I've gotten older is I used to sink into the classics and really just enjoy the beauty of literature, and now I'm reading like British housewife like thriller fiction. Like, it's not high fiction, it's like beach reads, and that's totally fine. That's where I am in my life. But like, I would love to intentionally work with Toni Morrison. Like, this is my literary fucking queen. So should I have an altar set out for them to learn more about the feminist perspective of Charlotte Perkins Gilman and the yellow wallpaper? Maybe I need to use this more as like kind of an embodiment. Like, I want to embody the lessons that these women have to teach me and use it as a way to kind of spark my mind in that way. But I don't know what I'm supposed to do with these. Because like trees, good roots, wisdom, connection, I care too much about trees for that to work. And yes, like I said, it's a theme of the day. I know I can ignore the keywords, but when it's written on the card, it's hard for me to do so. So that was Literary Witches and our very complicated relationship. All right, can we talk about a deck that I love that has keywords though? So this is the Fallen Angels Oracle. I love this deck. I don't use this deck very often, but I use the guidebook every single time that I work with this deck. So what I like about this deck is the keywords are here. But then when you go into the guidebook, the author portrays these keywords in a more predictive way, in a more future-telling kind of way. And I like that. Like, I think that for a while, divination has become more about self-discovery and kind of pondering the workings of the universe. And I think that's a great way to use tarot. It's mostly the way that I use tarot, other than, you know, connecting to spirit and to earth. But I think that there is a place in divination for actual predictions. And so I like that this is a deck that's guidebook is unapologetic in its approach to, if you pull this card, this is what's going to happen. Okay? And sometimes it's been like scarily accurate for me, but in the nature of future telling, as we all know, things do change and things do shift. And so I found that for more of the long-term readings, it didn't really work, or I couldn't really see it. Perhaps because the act of pulling the card itself gave me the guidance that I needed to avoid a certain consequence or to change my behavior. but for short-term things, I found it to be very valuable. So I use this deck when I need clarity about the future for that reason, and I'll show you the guidebook so you can see what I mean. So we have here some of the traditional associations with this particular fallen angel, such as the element, the planet, and then it has this message here. Turbulence threatens to erupt into your life, but it could bring benefits in the end. Okay, cool. Because sometimes we can see upheaval and we can kind of light wash it to, oh, things are changing, but it could be good. The guidebook does say that, but it also focuses on the turbulence of it and the fact that it is coming, y'all. You can't avoid it. And so I like that like certain tone in the deck that's like, look, this is what's going to happen in your future if you don't change things. And so it does something that no other deck does for me, period, that I love. So if you're watching this, I would love to know, like, other than Lenormand, if you have any other Oracle decks that do this, and the guidebook is very much like, yeah, guys, this is what's going to happen. Because I like that. I think it's neat. I think it's not something that I want to work with all the time, but it is something that like I want to dip into every now and then. So next is a very different style of reading. It's not nearly as straight of a shooter. That's going to be the Wild Unknown Archetypes deck. I almost gave this away probably about 12 different times because I wasn't in the flow of it. I wasn't in the mood for it. I didn't want to work with archetypal energy. This deck, more than anything, has taught me that I'm the kind of person that I need to hold on to my decks and not be hasty to regift, because there's a time and there's a season for everything. And I think it's fine to regift and to give away if you feel like everything, you know, you're done with it. But my personal way is that I kind of go through phases. Like sometimes it's even hard for me to pick my favorite decks of the month because I work with a different deck every single day. I sit down to my desk and I generally have kind of a mood if I want more like a nature deck that's grounding, or if I want like a fiery deck. And I'll be talking about those in a kind of like playing with pairs with my fire decks video that I'm going to post later this week. But for the most part, like my practice changes so much day to day that sometimes I'm just not in the mood for this big expansive energy, and then sometimes I am. And I think based off of the theme of this, how I really don't want straight shooters at this point for my own personal readings, probably means that this is a deck that I need to work with. So the guidebook is really clear on this, and I think it does give you a lot of guidance, but you're working with big ass energy. These are archetypal energies, the sustainer, you know? You can see from this image alone, or even just from the title of sustainer, what does it mean to you? Are you the sustainer? Who are the sustainers in your life? What are you sustaining? What do you need to let go of? There's a whole space to the world of archetypes that I think I'm going to be slipping into that fits very similarly to when I first started reading tarot, but I've been away from it for about 1.5 years. But I'm seeing the call to use this. I'm seeing the purpose to use this because we have titles. The poet. What the fuck does the poet mean to you? You get to decide when you use this deck. And I think that's where I am. So the archetype deck that I've cursed at, that I've literally put in its box and tried to give away 3 times, I never gave it away. And I think it's because I needed to keep it for the phase that I'm in now of the expansiveness. So the archetype deck. All right, and so I saved the best for last. So I do really firmly believe that the Faceted Garden that I showed earlier in this deck is gonna be in my top 3. But I wanna show you the 2 that have been at the top of the list that have never ever left, that I think in general describe my overall oracle reading style. So the first one that I want to discuss is the one that probably ruined it all for me, and this is Story Through Stone. So Sandera Quackenbush, I think it's upside down. Yeah, here we go. Sandera Quackenbush, she has a podcast. I think it's called The Archetypal Tarot. I'll leave a link in the description box below. It is 1000% worth a listen. And her father and her grandfather collected these stones. So these are images of natural stones. These images are incredibly evocative to me. They shoot shivers down my spine. And so when I really want to work with big, expansive oracle energy, I grab this, right? Because here's the thing, even when you're reading with like the most intuitive tarot, if you pull a Three of Pentacles, even if the artwork shows something completely different, you always have that back layer of what Three of Pentacles means. And sometimes it's hard to get past that. When you're working with a card like this that has no keywords, where the images are kind of like ink blots and you have to figure out for yourself what it means, the possibilities are limitless. I love this deck. You know what I primarily use this deck for is ancestral readings. When I like to do ancestral work, I don't want to sit down and try to commune with ancestors that were just like one generation past me or two generations past me. I want to work with ancestors that are ancestors of place, like people that are maybe not even in my family line, but people that are in this area. And you know, I don't want a deck that tells me that they were a lawyer or that they had a troubled life or this and that. I don't want to do that sort of mediumship work, though I do think that that's valuable if that's the type of work that you want to do, if that's the work that you're called for. I like to work with bigger energies than that, and so this deck allows me to hear what the ancestors have to say in a way that doesn't feel just like restricted by human conventions, by society, right? Like I don't want that. I want something that's larger. Like, let me ponder the world's questions with you. So that's Story Through Stone. I want to show you a card that I recently pulled that knocked my socks off. So my birthday was last Wednesday, so it was July 10th, and I pulled this card for my Wheel of Year reading because I always do it on my birthday. And what a beautiful description of this woman crossing this bridge, right? And her heart is here. We have a little fire underneath it. Her heart is being lit on fire for her to interact with this person on the other side of the bridge that's willing to receive her, which was a great example of year 27, crossing the bridge with my heart to those who care about me. That's, to me, that's more impactful than just the word openness, right? You're telling me a story through these cards. So, like, once again, I want to disclaim, because, you know, it's always very vulnerable coming on here and sharing this information. Everybody has their own practice, and everybody's practice is valid. What works for you works for you. I really just want to share in this video what's working for me, especially so I can view it later on to see if my practices have shifted or changed. All right, and then the last one, and then we'll wrap this bad boy up. Actually, I lied. We have two more left, but okay, it's fine. It's fine. Almost there, guys. All right, so this is the Prophet Oracle. This is one that has always been top of my list ever since I got it. If you're tired of seeing it on YouTube, guys, I'm sorry. I can't help it. I want to show this deck in every video possible. I use this deck as monthly themes. And so I pull one of these cards at the start of my blood moon cycle and sink into it. I think that there is something really beautiful. I'm just going to go on a tangent real quick, okay? A friend of mine and I were talking about menstruation yesterday when we were hanging out, and she describes like the act of your period as like purging, right? You're purging so that something new can move in. And I think that that's a really beautiful description of what this deck does. So, you know, I pull it at the start of my blood moon cycle because this is what I want to bring into my life. Rejoice through all the seasons. That's it. Like, that's what I want to bring into my life. And so this is aspirational in a way of reminding me to live very deeply, to live very in the moment. The gates of his heart were flung open. What more could you want from it? So this is my Knight of Cups deck. It is the deck that helps me to romanticize life, which is a major aspect of my own life. I want to see the beauty, and this is what this deck helps me to do. So instead of telling me this is what this card means, this is what you should do, it's giving me an ideal to look up to embrace, to embody. And I think that's what I want my Oracle decks to do right now. You know, I don't want just to be told a sharp shoot and answer. I want to embody whatever message they're trying to tell me. So this is the Prophet Oracle. And it also has landscape cards too. So I love it. This deck pairs really nicely with Tarot of Mystical Dreams, or Mystical Dream Tarot. Definitely worth giving a shot to if you're interested at all. I'm also interested in getting a couple more decks like this. Like, I know Lucille Clifton has a poetry deck, or rather a poetry deck was created with Lucille Clifton's poetry. I think I might be interested in that, but for right now, this is my deck for my season. So Story Through Stone and the Prophet, definitely like top 2 faves of this entire video, but I forgot about this guy, y'all. This guy was hanging behind some other ones. This is the Surrender Oracle. If you put me on the spot, I do think that I could say this is like number 3. I think I could say that. So it's okay that it was with the favorites, because it is one of my favorites. So I like this deck. I know that I just said don't tell me what to do. I don't like that. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what to think. Don't give me straight shot at answers. But this is my exception. So I think that there is a place in our collection and our practice kind of for all of the different nuances in the flow, and here is my exception. I like to use this deck when I am in the wrath of agony. So when I'm crying and I can't figure out what to do and I'm feeling hopeless and I'm feeling full of pain, this is the deck that I go to help me figure out the path forward. And I found this deck to work for not only me, but to work for other people. This deck wants to help people. It's my little counselor deck. She wants to be used. She just wants to be used. You know, I have a friend of mine who I did a reading for, and I actually gave her a card from this deck to keep out on her altar because it felt like that card was meant for her and not for me, and I'm okay with that. I would give other cards from this deck to other people. It's relatively cheap, and it's one that's not meant to be only for myself. But I use this deck for that specific direct guidance. Surrender procrastination, surrender to prayer, surrender the habit of people pleasing, surrender your ego. This makes sense more for practical advice than a deck like Earth Wisdom that just has these keywords on it. But you know, guys, I had mentioned that I'm not sure quite what to do with this. I might be able to just say in my own head, surrender to divine connection, surrender to divine protection, surrender to grace, surrender to joy. That might be it, guys. That might be it. Because surrendering to silence, that's a process. That's something that I can get lost in the expanse of. Joy isn't. Not the word joy, but like the process of surrendering to joy. Well, that's an entire experience. I might be onto something there. All right, guys. So I hope I didn't give you too much whiplash, because I got to reconcile with the Oracle decks. You know, I have to make sense of them, because for far too long I'm saying I don't use Oracle. I don't really like Oracle. I don't want to buy Oracle, da da da. I do use Oracle. I think I just showed that. But I think I want to use it in a way that feels authentic to me. And part of this process, part of this video is trying to figure out exactly what that is. So right now I'm in the season of expansiveness, and the season of looking for more, and the season of wanting to make my own connections. And I'm good with that. So I'm going to use the tools available for that. And then, you know, the days when I need straight advice like this deck will also be in my collection for me to use that. All right, guys, so I appreciate y'all so much being here. I have so much love in my heart for the YouTube community, and I always appreciate when you like my videos and you comment on my videos. I love to interact with you guys. It's part of the reason that I made this channel. So I appreciate y'all so much, and I can't wait to see y'all next time.